we're not talking enough about some of the bigger challenges that are facing us all, but also particularly men when it comes to mental health. And another angle, which I think we don't talk about, is how to support someone who you love who is going through something. Maybe it's not someone even you love, maybe it's someone you just met, but we're all going through something, and that is the truth. But how do we best support those around us? I think that's going to be a big question today, and a lot more with my incredible guest, which I think most people out there are probably getting to know already. Harj is doing some incredible work. But as always, as a tradition, we're going to do a little. I didn't bring my actual physical Spark Conversations cards, but to everyone out there, they're a tool for creating deeper, more meaningful conversations. So if you want to pack, you can go to sparkconversations.shop. So what I'm going to ask you to do is just pick a card, any card from the playing deck. So it could be Jack of Clubs,
Ooh, wow. Okay.
Ace of Hearts, anything. Just imagine a virtual deck in front of you right now.
7 of Hearts.
7 of Hearts. Ironically, Thingy just chose 4 of Hearts.
Did she?
Yeah.
Is she Cancerian?
She might be, actually. Right, okay, cool. Oh, actually, let's change that. I'll tell you why, because I asked this to someone recently.
Okay.
So choose the second one. Choose 2 more, and then I'm going to choose one out of those 2.
1 of Clubs.
There is no 1 of Clubs. It'll be Ace of Clubs.
Oh, so Ace of Clubs. I caught. Bloody hell! I don't know. Sorry, I was going to say 13, but no. Let's talk about. Let's think. Wow, man.
No, we can do that. So Ace of Clubs is 1, and then
Ace of Clubs is 1.
And then the second one.
The King of Spades.
All right, cool, nice. This is a good one. Perfect question for you, actually. All right. So, how would you title the current chapter of your life?
Wow.
It's a good one, isn't it?
That's a fantastic one, right?
Yeah.
Purpose-driven.
Nice. I like that. Elaborate.
So, we're going to cover a lot in this podcast.
Yeah.
And sometimes a lot of people feel that a lot of life challenges, a lot of obstacles, a lot of pain is thrown their way. And the question, and one of the things that I've been able to do, and I sort of continue to ask myself, is when I'm feeling a certain way, where has the pain led me to feel this particular part of my life? And when I talk about this particular part in the podcast where I went through this place, I went in such a dark hole where I thought the only way out was through this path, it showed me that I have a bigger purpose here. And that's something I've been fulfilling more so. In 2020, August, that's when the spark was initiated. But I would say this year was where I really focused in and honed in on what I believe I am here for, what I believe faith and God is serving me to do, which is to help people through addictions, gambling, drugs, and alcohol, which still today is either very normalized, so it doesn't deem a problem, or it is becoming such a problem that is such a taboo topic. And one of the things I want to do is I can see, and I've actually spoken to people where they are suffering in silence, but I want to shift that narrative to bring strength to that silence.
Beautiful. So funny you should say that, purpose driven. When I had Amit on the podcast recently, I was telling him about an idea that popped into my head as I was preparing this workshop. I came up with this idea, what I call identity. So instead of identity, it is our purpose-driven mission in life. So our identity. Why are we doing what we do, and what are we doing? What do we identify as in terms of what my mission is? And so I kind of just mesh those 2 words, and I think about that a lot now. And I try and encourage a lot of guys to think about what is your identity, and usually it's something much bigger than ourselves. And when we make it that bigger thing, it gives us something more than the sense of ourself. It gives us that extra fire, that drive, that spark that kind of hits us forward, like propels us forward.
100%. You're onto something so phenomenal here, because men, especially, I've seen, and I'm coming across now, which is they are lacking their identity.
Yeah.
And the question that they're looking at is they're looking at every other aspect of life, their relationships, their careers, their childhood, or the people in their life, and they're reflecting on other people, but they're not tuning inwards. And the only way that we can do that is, rather than what is my identity, is why my identity. And the perfect thing with that is why gets us to look inwardly and more so into our heart and who we truly are. So phenomenal. I love that you're doing that.
Cheers, man. Feel free to share that identity. Let's
I
find
know, I'm
them.
gonna take that off you, bro.
Please,
So,
man. Please do it. Just say, buy Amit Soda.
I'm gonna say register a trademark. Harj.
But listen, for anyone who doesn't know anyway, for the next 5 minutes, please tell everyone a little bit about your backstory, because I know it is well known, but also as well, there'll be people out there who still don't know who you are, and what you went through, and what you've come to do now. So give us the 5 minute lowdown.
Well, it's okay. So I'm Harj Gahley. I'm a gambling addict. I'm actually a recovered gambling addict. Now, 5 years ago, if you'd said to me that's how I would be titling myself or introducing myself, I would say you're mad. You know, growing up in a South Asian household, in a Sikh household from Slough, which is only down the road, you know, I grew up with a mum and dad. I grew up with 3 brothers, 2 older, 1 younger. And for me, I felt this. I was never in a really strict Sikh household, and the reason for that is because we were given open reign, and I thought going to school, getting an education, and my parents didn't even push me to get an education. I thought doing this route, seeing my cousins, seeing my friends, being from the South Asian background, if you haven't got a degree, you could also be deemed a failure, right? That's how I grew up being an 80s child, a millennial. I saw that, and for me, I went to university. I did a typical Indian degree. Any guesses what I studied?
Either maths, computing, or business.
Law.
The one I missed.
The one you missed. Dentistry, optometry, pharmacy. So I went to university, I studied law, but I had no passion or fascination for law. But I saw, okay, my cousin's doing this, he's doing that, she's doing this. Well, I need to at least be doing something else, because law could be respected occupation in our culture. So I went to university, did law, got the degree, came out, and what happened was, after I left university, I realized that law wasn't for me. Being a very extrovert person, but I was hiding a huge part of my introvertness, which I will come on to. But I was a people pleaser, I was a life and soul of the party. Law wasn't for me, and I found my way into business. And I started up basically a small website for students, because I heard about Facebook coming into the UK. But when I started that company up in 2007, I sold it in 2009. Most of my money went to investors. I made a little bit of change. But just hear me out here, because I grew up thinking, if I get a 30, 40,000 pound a year job, get a house, drive a BMW, Audi, or Mercedes, not stereotyping it.
Not at all.
Not at all. That's me making it in life.
Yeah.
Now, when I acquired that company, when the company got acquired through Times Corp, what happened was I realized I've now surpassed that childhood dream and that level of what I deemed success, because no one in my family or no one around me, to my close family, had ever made that money. So I'm now above them. But what had happened, I had been opened up to this millionaire lifestyle. My investors were people that had massive houses in property, driving, 640 BMWs, having Porsches, having Ferraris. And I saw that lifestyle. And what happened to me was I ended up going into the world of gambling. And what I thought was fun, exciting, lighthearted, something I could do with my friends, ended up becoming my downfall. And this stayed with me for 12 years of my life. Because unlike other addictions like drugs and alcohol, you can see when someone's intoxicated or someone's on drugs, right? Gambling is also known as a hidden addiction, because I would say it's more of an emotional roller coaster, but some of these emotions you can hide through, especially in relationships. So I was able to master this very easily because it wasn't affecting my external abilities.
And you'd already learned how to put on a facade.
Oh, we're going to talk about masks and how easy men and women can flip between them. So I did this and I became such a theatrical person. Remember, the people pleasing, became such a theatrical person. I knew when I'm with my wife, I can put this mask on. When I'm with my parents or my brothers, this mask. When I'm in the job, I can wear this mask. When I'm by myself, actually, I don't need to wear a mask. But that true mask, I identified who I was and what I was really doing. And gambling was a way that I found a level of escapism. So for people watching this, 2020 was a time where the brakes were hit. My wife found out. And to give you some context of how bad that gambling became, I put me and my family into £250,000 worth of debt. That's £250,000.
A lot of money.
I don't care who you are. That's a big pill to swallow. And that was all through my own doings. I had breakdowns in relationships with my own family members, with people around me, friends, almost my wife. I had breakdowns of careers because the reason I'm saying this is because most people think that gambling only impacts and affects your finances. It doesn't. That's a byproduct of it. But when you look at it from a peripheral perspective and go, hold on, what are the areas that really affecting? It affected all the other areas,
Everything.
and that's the one I was basically negating because I was so blinkered. Like when you see those racehorses, I'm going to be using a lot of puns in this. So when you see those racehorses and they got those blinkers and they can't see anything, and for me, all I could see was gambling, gambling, gambling. When I saw gambling, it was just consumed. So being in 250k debt, having breakdown relationships, breakdown of careers, breakdown of my mental and physical health. You know, the way I had sleep detriments, eating habits, and we talk about mental health and how men can't open up about it. You know, I was one of those men, to the point where I saw what it took to come out of that, and I just couldn't climb it. The shame, the fears, what do people think? What do my children think? The internal self-sabotaging dialogue that may go through if you've been in that situation, to the point of attempting the unthinkable.
Yeah.
Trying to self-delete on the 18th of August 2020, because that's the only way that I could feel or I could see to park the pain.
Do you know, we've got actually a lot more parity in our stories than I realized, actually, because mine wasn't gambling, but I got myself into a huge amount of debt when I was younger. Mine was a consumerist debt. And, you know, I ended up just starting off with one simple thing, and it spiraled out of control. And then I just ended up getting credit cards and spending on them. And the day my family found out, oh, that was a big day. But like you, tried to unalive myself.
Yeah.
You know, and this was, you know, early 2000s. But you know, like I often don't think about my past that much nowadays and stuff. It's, you know, a huge part of my history, but you know, it's never in the forefront of my mind. But when you started talking, I was like, shit, man, there's a lot of parity there as well. But I even forgot about the day that my family found out, because it was my sister who, like, because you know, I actually, what she did was she did like a, you know, a credit check. You know, sometimes, and then like she got rejected for something. She was like, "What's going on?" So then she did that thing where they send you all the list of all your debts in that household, and obviously mine came up, and so then suddenly it all came out.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And talking about credit reports, I haven't said this before, but I'll say it here.
Yeah.
People don't understand the backlash of this when you go into debt. See, it could be something like, oh, for an example, we're chasing money. For gambling, you're chasing losses. When you go into addictive habits, you could wear all these other excuses, but the reality is you're chasing a loss, which is masking something else. So when you chase that £10, that £20, that £20 becomes £100, that £100 becomes £500, £500 becomes £1,000. So when you saw my bank statements, it was where I deposited 50, 50, 50, 100, 200, 50, 500. Like in a day, I would gamble away £9,000. £9,000 sitting on a toilet at work. Within 20 minutes, boom, I've lost £9,000.
That's crazy.
The way I had to scream and talk, and I'm sitting in a cubicle. I can't shout, I can't scream, but you're internalizing it. You're so angry and vexed at yourself. And the way you talk to yourself, you wouldn't wish this upon your worst enemy, but it's okay to do it to yourself. So the reason I said that, because people don't realize that when you get into debt, and for me, I had a bad credit rating since the age of 18. So I went to university. I didn't really class that as good credit, wherever it was. I didn't know about credit ratings. But what happened was when I got into gambling and I was, like you said, taking the payday loans out, credit cards, the overdrafts, shark loans and other bits and bobs, and stealing and defrauding and borrowing from family and friends and causing turmoil in relationships. I was a Tasmanian devil for relationships around me. My credit rating was very poor. I mean, in the 200s marks. Up until the age of 34, 35. To give you some context, I'm 40. So my credit rating is now excellent, but it's only happened in the last 5-6 years.
Yeah. That's crazy though. Firstly, the £250,000, and then £9,000 in one 20 minute binge,
Yeah,
and I think that just goes to show how quickly things can not only turn but get out of hand
100%.
so quickly. And this is when I talk to people and people ask me about, okay, so why is it you're a vegan teetotal, who doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, all this kind of stuff, and I'm like, do you know what? I just don't go down that path. Do you know what I do allow myself, right? I do allow myself certain freedoms, right? So I allow myself one cigar a year. That's it. That's it. I don't even take it half the time. I happened to be in a venue a couple of months ago for someone's birthday. That's beautiful cigar cabinet. I was like, oh yeah, boys, who wants to have a cigar with me and everything? So I had one, but it's not something I have to do.
Yeah.
But I allow myself if I fancy doing it. But it's crazy. Like, and so for me, that limit just exists. It just makes my life so much more easier. I just don't get involved with certain things, like even alcohol. Like, it was just one of those things that when I was a kid, we had an off license, and I started drinking from the age of about 12. Like, not huge amounts, but enough so that it could have easily have turned into a problem.
Mm.
I was quite lucky that at the age of 15 I entered a spiritual world, and so I just let all of these things go, and I'm so glad I did. I was even smoking as well, and so I just decided from that point, I'm not going to drink, not going to smoke, and although I've have on occasion, over the last sort of
Yeah.
48 years of my life, whatever, but it just became an easier thing to just do that. But of course, that's not to say that shit didn't happen. For me, it was the spending thing, right? It just
Yeah.
one incident, me going accidentally overdraft, led to a whole spiral of maxing out my personal consumer debt of like 25 grand.
Do you know what the ironic thing about my journey was? So we talked about alcohol. So I turned 40 this year, and back in the last year, because obviously now with a lot of the work I do around mental health, recovery advocacy, talking about addictions within the South Asian culture, and trying to break those taboo and those conversations, back in the last year, September, October, November, December became so busy for me. I was doing workshops, doing talks, and all over the UK, and I had burnout. And my wife said to me, she goes, "Hard man, you need to calm down. You're going at full pace here." I said, "I don't want to slow down.
Mm.
I'm so purpose driven. The question I need to ask myself, and this is what you did unconsciously or subconsciously, which is you became self aware.
Mm.
And the self awareness came to me, which was, well, actually, the reason I'm feeling that way is because my diet wasn't good. So this year I've lost almost 10 kilograms at the beginning of the year because I knew that was a big part of it. And I also just sorted out my eating habits. And that was it. And getting better sleep. Oh, sleep is an underrated thing.
Yeah.
And those three things have shifted. So I'm actually doing more than I was back then, but I've actually got more energy than I have. And part of that was I actually stopped drinking. I realized that drinking was also a big part because I'm not the type of person that can have one.
Yes. Yeah.
I have to have another one, and then I have to have another one, and then I have to another one, to a point where I was like, why am I even doing this? And that became something that I experienced in my childhood. So I've sort of spoken about this before, but I grew up with an alcoholic father. Now, in a lot of Punjabi households, I'm not going to say Sikh because I get a lot of naysayers that said this isn't Sikh, this is Punjabi, but I'm calling it what it is. In a lot of Punjabi households, drinking, sharab, is normalized hugely.
Yeah.
We see it at wedding functions, Christmas, get-togethers, parties. What's the first thing they do? Bang, get the table, put some drinks out. Well, what if you didn't?
Mm.
What if you could just have conversations, have a great time? It just seems to only have a good time, drink has to be involved in that conversation. Even to a point when you go to parties and you start saying, well, listen, I'm not drinking. What's the first thing they say to you? The Markravia? Like, oh, what's wrong with you? Well, nothing's wrong with me.
So true that they do that.
I'm like, nothing. I'm actually good here. I'm sane. I'm choosing not to drink. But yet, the narrative is flipped, isn't it? Well, I become the problem because I'm not drinking. Well, isn't it a great thing that I'm actually just being self-aware? And I've learned this more so recently, but seeing what I saw in my household at the age of 8, 9, and I saw the arguments, the fights between my mum and my dad. I saw 4 children. My mum had 4 boys within 5 years.
Yeah, oh God, that's a lot.
Listen, you lot back in the day,
Your mum
man.
is a trooper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, come on, they need to be having a bit of. What was it? Oh, they had no TVs back then, wasn't it? So for me, I grew up with 4 brothers, and the truth is, I never saw them as brothers. By blood, they are. But what we saw was when there was a lot of conflict, a lot of arguments in the house, we shut off. So we became mates where we could play football, do this and do that. But when it was anything which was really heartening and deepening and opening up about our true feelings, we would never do that.
Yeah.
And that's because we didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
We weren't shown how to do it.
No, yeah, no one knows, right? Especially, and it's still very prolific in South Asian community, right?
Yeah.
And you touched on a couple of things actually, which are really important. One of which is the the subtle addictions. I think that we all, that a lot of people have, and the normalizing of those addictions in terms of
Yes.
how it's framed, perceived. Like the thing I see a lot of is, like I need. I see this as what in the dating world. I need a couple of drinks to be myself. And you
That's
just know,
courage.
yeah, and then you just normalize it and think it's a normal thing to do.
Yeah.
But actually, the normal modality should be for you that I'm okay being myself, and if I feel like a drink, yes, I'll have a drink. And then there was a couple other things that just cropped up in my head, right? That I think are really important. That that we're talking about these subtle addictions, right? I probably do have a little bit of an addictive personality, which is why I'm quite careful. Like occasionally, I've had games on my phone, and
Yeah.
then I've spent a bit, and then I've spent a bit more, and then I spent a bit more, and then I get to a point where actually my brain just goes, no, fuck this. I ain't gonna spend any more. I'm gonna just delete the game. Done, because I realize like I'm just wasting my money spending on this game and stuff. And while yeah, it's a bit of entertainment, it's fine. And I'm not completely out of control, but I just think it's what really is it serving me. And so I've kind of been able to just curb it and switch it off, only because I've grown up with a little bit of that spiritual practice in me that started at a very young age. So I've been able to regulate for the most part. So that's been a huge thing in my life. But you touched on something else as well, which I think I'd love to go down this path as well. It's just talking about the impact it has on your relationships, and then
Mm.
then further to that, in terms of regarding us when we're in a situation where we see a loved one with problems, with challenges, going through something that they may not even be aware, can be masked. It just can be, again, shrouded in a platitude of, yeah, well, what's wrong? And all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But actually, people have got a problem. And so, I guess, first and foremost, my question is this, right? So, God, firstly, like, how the hell did your wife respond? And then what happened for her to not leave and then start supporting you? And, what part did she play in getting you through this?
So we'll break that down. So the exact date was 16th of June 2020. You might remember this. What happened to the world? We went into the pandemic.
Yes.
So, but I remember this particular day. It was about 8 o'clock in the morning, and we were all self-isolating. We actually isolated with my in-laws, and I had a 2-year-old son at the time, Jeevan. And I'd gone into the shower, enjoying it, come back out, and I heard my son Jeevan playing in his room. I can still hear his laugh now. I'm a coffee person in the morning, so I like to have a brew coffee. I can smell that coffee as I'm walking into the bedroom. By the way, that part of the weather was phenomenal. It was so lovely.
Yeah.
And I remember that morning being quite warm, quite bright. And as I walked into the bedroom, I've seen my wife sitting on the bed, right? And my instinct has gone, what has gone on here? That feeling of brightness, it went really dark, really quick. And when I saw my wife crying, and I have never, in the years of marriage I've been with her, never seen like that before. So we got married in 2014, so this is 6 years of marriage. Never ever have I seen her cry like that. But the worst part was when she looked up at me with these eyes. You may have experienced this. Have you ever had those eyes that look at you and it's just
Yeah.
pure heartbreak and disappointment? It was there. And my first instinct was, what's gone on? What's happened? Tell me, you're crying, something's gone on. So my first instinct is to what? Help her. Until I noticed a phone in her hand. But it was my phone. And it no longer became about what she was crying about and what she was going through. It became very selfishly about me. What has she uncovered? What has she seen? What has she noticed? Has she uncovered my lies? And I remember that moment where she locked eyes at me, turned the phone around, and there it was, black and white. She'd accessed my hidden Monzo account, and transactions after transactions after transactions. I'm not talking £10, £20. I'm talking hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of pounds. But now put yourself in her shoes. Hadn't got a clue, hadn't known about this. No one's known about. No one in my family, no one has known about my addiction or even me gambling. I hid this from everyone from the world. Yet she's the first person to find out. And part of me was going to say, do you know what? I've become such a prolific liar. Because we talk about compulsive gamblers, but we don't talk enough about the compulsive line that comes with it, the secrecies, the lies, the deceit. And part of me was going to tell a lie, which was I'd basically got laid off in a job. Part of me was going to say, well, do you know what? A friend of me said you can make a bit of money. I had a bit of money in my account. I wanted to bet to see if I could win some, try and pass the buck off that way. But the truth was, I was tired as well. I was done running. I was done hiding. I was done with the lies. And if you're the Bible, or everyone knows the saying, right? If you speak your truth, it shall set you
Yeah.
free. So I decided in this moment, I'm going to speak my truth. How hard it is, I'm just going to let it out. Told exactly. I've been gambling since 2009. I started off in a casino, went to bookmakers, then it became the rise of Vegas in your pocket. So all my stuff meant I hadn't go to a casino, or I didn't have to go to bookmakers. I could do everything from the touch of a button. And when she saw my transaction, she thought, hold on, there are thousands of pounds that you're spending in a day. And to give us some insight, I would wake up gambling. I'd be on the way to work gambling. I was driving and doing auto spins on the roulette when my focus should have been on the road. I'd get to work and gamble. I'd book myself into meeting rooms, pretending I'm meeting, but I'm in there with my phone or my laptop gambling. In the work toilet sometimes gambling, where I lost £9,000, Or there would be times where I'd tell my wife, I can't come back home. I need to work late because I'm on a gamble run, or I need to gamble, or I'd go back. But here's the truth. When I was up, I was the life and soul. I'll be buying drinks at the bar. I'll be making sure we're doing this. But when I'm losing, I'm not going out. I'm not coming after drinks. We can't go to that holiday. We can't go to this restaurant. We can't do this. All that plans that we've got with our friends, we're going to cancel it because I've got work. So there are signs that you can see. But for my wife, when she saw that moment, that amount, and me going to her, well, I don't know how much it really is. And then I think that relationships are built on not love. That's a byproduct of trust. That's in my personal opinion. And I broke the foundational thing of all relationships, which is trust. And I remember storming out the room and going downstairs, and I'm now left by myself, my thoughts, going, what have I done here, man? Like, for 12 years of my life, and the truth is, I think a lot of that masking and all that reality and the guilt, truth, yes, makes you free, makes you alleviated, and yes, it did let some off, but no one equips you for the guilt that you have to wear this chain of heaviness, because that's the thing that we've been lying, right? So this guilt that I had to wear was so heavy and so heartbreaking. And the part of me that I learned about myself in that moment was I was so eagerly chasing this jackpot. My jackpot is my family. They're the ones that have stood by me. They're the ones that have championed me. They're the ones that have supported me through whatever I have done in life. And yet now I'm at the cusp of losing it all. My child, my wife was saying to me, pack your bags, go. You're not going to see your child anymore, And divorce is another taboo topic that is not talked about enough. Or if it is, it's not in-depth conversations about what it is. So I'm now risk losing everything. I'm sitting there thinking, how do I make this right? Or is this too late? And I remember her coming back to me. And there's a moment where we had this conversation. She said, look, I've spoken to your mum. I've spoken to my dad. I've spoken to my parents. If we're going to make this work, stop the credit. Like that was my line I heard. I heard nothing before. I heard nothing after. In my head, all I heard, if we're going to make this work. That's all I needed to hear. I've been given a lifeline that I was so desperately asking for, perhaps even praying for. And for that moment, I was like, what do I need to do? And she said, you're going to need to get professional help. But who do I ask? As a man, you have this ego trip that kicks in, because we're not, like I told about before, from a young age, I'm not being shown how to nurture, how to wear my armor of God or armor of skins, or how to navigate through this. So part of me is like a bit of delusional, really, a lot of ego here.
You're probably thinking, I could do this myself.
100%.
Yeah.
But when I said that to myself, I caught myself saying, well, when you have tried this yourself, you've only got worse. And look where you are right now. And I had to drop the ego. And I think this is the big part of what I've learned in this whole new part of my life, which is how do I drop my ego and the logic and go back into my heart. And really, when I saw my wife sitting there talking to me from a place of heart, I would say, and non-judgment, I thought to myself, do I ask my parents? Do I ask my brothers? Do I ask my friends? Part of me was about to, but then the shame kicks in again. How do I explain it to them? How do I, if I do explain, how are they going to understand what I've been through? Then the guilt kicks in, and then the shame kicks in, then the fear kicks in, and part of it is, well, even if that's not good enough, well, can they really help you? Are they qualified to help you? And that's the other word we try to do. We try to ask for help, but then we try to procrastinate or try to give some sort of excuse that person or that thing can't help me because they're not qualified or they don't know much about this. And also, part of my point, but how the fuck are they going to help me if they don't know anything about it and haven't been through it themselves? So I reached out to my local temple. Oh, that was a really disheartening conversation.
Oh, I can imagine.
Because growing up, I think I'm finding my faith more now because I lost a big part of who I was and big part of my Sikhi faith and big part of God. Growing up with my grandma, who's really religious, and seeing my in-laws who are really religious, how do I ask for help? So when I reached out to temple and I said to them, look, I'm struggling here with a gambling addiction. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. The first thing they tried to do was throw the Barney down me. And as much as I tried to meet them, I felt I couldn't. I felt I wasn't heard or seen. And then when I felt like I was heard, I felt like I was judged when I was in those conversations. And the reality was that they didn't have to support me. And being Punjabi as well, it can be a very, very abrupt and straight to the point language. And part of me was really angry at the temple and selfishly at my faith as well, because I've been asking for this. I'm coming to you now, and now you're pushing me away to the point where I managed to just Google online gambling help. I spoke to NHS. I spoke to a couple of other people. I went. That's my start of the journey of where I decided to go to NHS and recovery. But I found the NHS another place where they can treat a problem but not understand a person. And I only read this recently. 97% of people treated through NHS addiction services are white.
Really? Wow.
So Brit Asians and ethnic minorities are underrepresented in treatment, but overrepresented in silence.
Yeah.
And part of that was I felt doing the CBT, jumping on the weekly calls, telling my wife, because now she's seeing our accountability. So I'm showing up to these calls, I'm showing up to all this. Perhaps I was lying to myself, thinking I was getting better, but there are no one-on-ones. I'm thrown in group sessions. I'm taught about gambling. I'm not healed, because I think gambling, and what I've come to realize is that gambling is a much deeper rooted problem. It's not the issue, but it is a problem. So what I realized that my issue wasn't being dealt with, and I was just looking at triggers, I was looking at text level stuff, and what I thought I was getting better, I was actually getting worse. I was getting worse than when I first started off, because then when you start doubting yourself, the self-sabotaging dialogue kicks in. Am I worth it? I've let my family down. I've let my wife down. I've let my children down. Who would want me? You're a fucking failure. You're a piece of shit. Look at you. You're not worthy of this. You're a shame. Like, how can your parents go out there? How could your wife look at you? How could you even build that relationship? You're in 250k debt. These are the things I kept telling myself. And the 18th of August was the day I said, fuck it. I was in my car, in my BMW 3 Series.
Grey.
It was grey. M1, near Leicester Services. I'm coming back, and that rotation, that self-sabotage dialogue, and I became so alone and so abandoned, but I put myself in that position. Yet my wife is trying to champion me, my in-laws are trying to champion me, but I just couldn't face the reality of it. So I've put myself into further abandonment, further isolation, and now I'm letting myself self-sabotage dialogue and my negative thinking get the better of me. And like I said to you before, seeing all that, looking at the ladder I had to climb to come out of that whole situation, I didn't have it in me. I had no fight left in me. So I just, I just said to God, I said, listen, I'm done with everything. Just let my pain go away. And I just closed my eyes and let the car do what I wanted to do. And the next thing I know, bang, hit the central reserve. And there's a moment where you wake up, or am I awake? And this sort of weird astral physical form, I don't know what you might call it. And it's like, am I alive? Am I dead? Where am I? And it's like a split second, then your senses kick in. But the reality was I realized what I've just done. And I panicked. And I'm trying to start my car, I'm trying to flee from the scene. My car ain't going nowhere. I think I sent you some pictures of what it looked like. But it's a wake up call. And the nurse that approached the scene gave me, I think, a part of the wake up call. And that's when I realized, well, hold on, perhaps this is the sign I needed. But it didn't really click because I think the overwhelm and everything else was, my emotions are high. So my thinking and my doing and my actions were all over the shop. And that was the 18th of August. But what happened 2 days after, 20th of August, when everything calmed down and everything sort of fizzled, that's when the realization of what I'd done and what I put my family through and what I put myself through, and realizing, damn, like, why did I do that? And then there was a moment where me and my son Jeevan had this interaction at McDonald's, and we're sitting in a drive-through, and have you had those moments where you know something profound is about to happen? It was that moment where I looked at my son, and he took this bite of this chip, and it's three words he just said, but it was the energy that he gave through me. He just said, "I'm so lucky." 3 words that shifted and transformed my whole life. And personally, I believe, looking at this, I felt that God was talking through my son through me. And Jeevan, which means life, saved my life that day. He taught me some valuable lessons, and that's where...
How old was he at the time?
2.
Okay.
And is it interesting that the most powerful of conversations that can transform you can come from the smallest voices? Just like I did with the smallest voice in my head. And then this son, Jeevan, I've got another son now, Rai, king. He is a king. I mean, he puts me in my place. And it's a beautiful synergy to see this, but I wouldn't have seen this if I did what I did. And I've now got to embrace this moment. I've got to embrace my family. I'm now 5 years into my recovery. But what happened is, you said this before, how do you then go and navigate through not just your wife, now you've got other people around you? And there's a really powerful quote that I've always stuck with me, which is, if you allow it, you enable it. Oh, man, I was like, that is a powerful quote, because a lot of people that might be in relationships where their partners, male or female, could be in situations where they're on drugs, they're drinking, like I said, gambling, other excessive things. It could be narcissistic relationships, toxic relationships, abusive relationships. If you're allowing that behavior to happen in that relationship, you are also enabling that relationship to be in that position. So the question I started asking myself is, what am I allowing that's enabling these behaviors to happen to me? And what really worked in this powerful favor is journaling. Now, people think journaling has to be done on an everyday basis. When I worked with my therapist, not through NHS, I went to another therapist. Remember, and I think there's another thing as well. Don't underestimate what you can achieve in weeks or months than you can do in years.
Yeah.
And part of that was really, one therapist didn't work. That didn't mean another one couldn't. And it might take 3 or 4 or 5 different frogs to kiss before you find what you're looking for, right? And for me, when I found Alison, and what she realized was, you know about CBT, and she goes, let's be honest with you, I don't need to teach you about trigger because guess what? You've lived it, you've experienced it. So let's go a bit deeper. So when she did what we called inner child work, that's where I saw this moment of that 8-year-old child, alcoholic abusive father, who was also quiet as a mouse, but when he drank, became a monster. And the irony of it is that he was also going through his own stuff, and they have their own traumas or challenges that they go through, and they find drink as a way to do it. Because guess what? Other people have told them, what do? When we talk about a problem, we don't talk about it. We just get a bottle out in front of us and we just drink through it. So what happened was I saw that behavior, but mine wasn't drinking. Even though I did drink, mine became gambling. So even though I was trying to run and not become this monster, guess what happened?
You ran into it, right? You became it.
I became it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't shift that behavior, because I didn't change my characteristics. I didn't look at what was causing this. And remember I said, the addiction is not the issue. Anything that we do, any addictive habits that we do comes from a place of pain. So you only have to look at someone's lifestyle and what they are doing and how they're acting and what they are doing to realize is what is their lifestyle telling you, but more importantly, where is the pain coming from that's given that lifestyle. When we go to a gym, we don't love the gym when we go there. Something has sparked us initially, the way we look about ourselves. Oh, the self-esteem, the self-worth. Someone said, call me fat, or someone said this about me. So pain has led us to that. After a while, when we see little wins or these dopamine kicks, then we start to like it. So I always ask, don't ask why the addiction, and Gabor Mate said this as well, don't ask why the addiction, ask why the pain.
Yeah.
And that's the profound moment, which is you now take accountability. And what I realized was when Alison taught me about the inner child work, I connected dots, and there's no one big thing that creates an addictive habit lifestyle. It's a cluster or a series of mini pains which cluster into a big pain. And then what we try to look for this magic pill, or this magic moment, or this one thing that has caused all of it. Well, there's a series of stuff that happen. So, for an example, and this is an analogy that I use, when you lose your key, what do? Look for it. And when you can't find it, because you've got a partner, what do?
Yeah. Honey, where's my key?
And then what happens? You both got a third party. But you're looking at it from a place of problem. I've got to get ready for late. I'm late for this, or I've got to do this, or you're looking at it from a place of disruption and problem. Your partner is looking at it from a place of solution. And who ends up usually finding the key? Them. Because they are not looking at it from a panic state. They're looking at it from a solutions-based state. And that's the same thing with life. When we backtrack our steps and we look at what we do, this is why therapy, talking, because those are the people that are meeting you from a whole different energy. They're looking at a solution that's going to try and get you to find what you're looking for. And that's the beauty about therapy and opening up and talking. This is why I try to urge men to go, well, what can I talk about? Or how do I have those first stepping stones? And that's it. It's just, what if you could live in a world where you just park the fear? And I draw this tennis match. I said, you serve the fear, but you can't hit it inside of the court. So what is that's really holding you in this place? And that's where we start to open up the conversations. And it's really about looking inwardly as opposed to trying to adopt this on other people, because it's easy to blame society, to blame the government, to blame other problems. And you might like this. My mentor said this to me. He's like, just remember this, Harj. When you point your finger at someone, there are 3 fingers pointing back.
Yeah.
And that is such a surreal moment, because you have to ask yourself, well, why am I doing this? So you're taking accountability for it. And that's what it is.
Yeah. I literally did a video about this today, right? I was talking about, the quote you said, right? So what you allow, you enable.
Yeah.
And I have a very similar quote that I often kind of tell people as I'm talking about dating relationships and patterns, which is don't ask why they keep hurting you, ask why you keep letting them.
Yes.
And I did a video today talking about this, that when you recognize your part in that pattern, like say for example, you keep attracting the same type of person who is, and they're always that type of person where maybe they're avoidant, they let you down, they disappear, and you keep doing it, you got to get to a point where you got to ask yourself, why do I keep allowing that type of person in? Why do I keep allowing this type of interaction to go? When you go from blame to claim, and you claim responsibility, that's where things start to change. And so, hey, listen, we all do it. There are moments during the day I start blaming little things outside of me. It's like
We're human beings.
This fucker's fault, that fault,
Yeah.
that fault, my dog's fault, my wife's fault. This, we all have moments, but ultimately, I know it's all about me.
Yeah.
When I take responsibility and I realize, okay, I could have got ready 5 minutes earlier. I rushed here to the podcast studio today. I could have got ready 5 minutes before. I could have done. There was 1,000 things I could have changed, rather than thinking it's this person's fault, that person's fault, this, that, the other. But yeah, you're right. Taking that responsibility.
And this was a big part of my recovery journey, which is looking at people around me. So I remember having a meeting with my brothers, and the way I approached this meeting was, I don't want them to. I'm not here looking for forgiveness. I'm here just to open up the discussion, and however they look at it, whether they want to forgive me, whether they want to understand it, it's up to them. But what I can do is I can control how I just open up. And it was really simple, just saying there might be times where you may have seen me acting certain ways or doing certain things or lying to you or borrowing money from you, wherever it may be. Not just my brothers, this is friends, this is families, where I just said, this is the reason why. And I lost a lot of relationships because of it. But also I've navigated some fantastic relationships because of it. Because when you start looking at things and they can't understand, that's okay, because they're not where you're at. And also you are still building yourself up as well. So what I've realized is when you open up about certain things, you are going to get people, and it's a bit like Moses parting the Red Sea. You're going to get people that understand you and people that don't. That's the reality of life. I call it the yin yang approach. You can't experience happiness without sadness, negativity without positivity. So if you're allowing yourself to think negatively, give yourself the grace to think positively too, right? So when you keep just opening up, and I think the question, and one of the biggest things I ask people to do is, who's one person, just one person that you feel you could at least open up to? Even if there's a 1% chance that they're not going to judge you, could you open up to that person? Because they think they want this 100% chance. Yeah. What's this 1% chance? And they realize that it's a lot more people than they think. So when I say, right, pick one of them or pick 3 of them, and the surprising result that comes off the back of it is that actually they have been so supportive, because perhaps your household or people in your environment have put you into a place where you can't open up. And if I'm looking at this from a different perspective, why do men find it hard to communicate? Being in the line of work that you do, what's your thoughts on that?
I think a big part is history, influence from a parental influence, roles, gender roles, in terms of what we perceived. And do you know what I listened to recently as well? Like, Brené Brown was on Diary of a CEO recently.
Love that.
And I loved her recent definition of vulnerability is joy, strength, is courage. And it's so true, because I think we associate, it is still the very notion of vulnerability instantly for a lot of guys infers weakness. But what she's trying to say is, no, it takes real strength and real courage to be vulnerable. And I think that once we redefine that word, it's going to unlock a lot from people. But I think if I think back to some of the things I went through, I was telling my wife the other day, like, some of the things that happened in our family. I saw, I don't know why this cropped up, what the conversation was, but, like I think back to, like my parents are wonderful people, my mum's around, my dad is, and my dad's a wonderful human being. But of course, he went through real massive struggles. Like I remember a scene where he's over my mum with a chair, ready to smash this chair down on her. And then there was another time, and I had to stop him. And this is when I was very young. This is like, maybe 6, 7, 8, maybe. And then, a little bit later, so I must have been about 18, my dad's got a hammer. And, and the thing is, my dad is as gentle as anyone. But in that moment, he's raging. He's raging. He just wants her to feel like, I'm going to do this shit. And I had to grab this. I must have been about 18, I think. I guess roughly.
Yeah.
I had to grab this hammer from my dad, and I said, "Don't you fucking dare! You do that, I'll finish you. I'll do it myself on you."
Yeah.
All right. Like it was that kind of thing. And but I look at how he dealt with problems. The only one modality for getting out his emotions he had was anger. And you said it as well. Punjabi culture, drinking. Gujarati culture, stoic. We don't talk about things like that.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm sure in other cultures there's other things as well. But that's where I've seen and where it comes from. It comes from that we didn't have these means before. There's no outlets. There's nothing. We just had very poor coping mechanisms. But now we've got a plethora of options.
And that's for not and that, like you said there, it's how we see what we call sponges, right?
Yeah.
And when we look at our childhood, or we look at things, one thing I try to encourage my children is how to open up with their communication. But we weren't never taught. Remember, if I go back to my time, so what's happened is, because we're not taught how to communicate, what are we taught? Shut up. We know better than you. Oh, what are you complaining about? You should be lucky that you're here. So what are we doing? We are suppressing this voice. But then what we're also suppressing is the curiosity. And then we hit teen years, we lose that curiosity because then responsibility kicks in. And that curiosity also kept us who we were as children, which sparked us to go and be Christopher Columbus and navigate and be an adventurer and push things, push boundaries. But every time we tried to push a boundary, guess what? We were shut down. Then what happened, we get into relationships, and what's happening, part of my experience as well, is that relationships are looked at from a transactional perspective. So it's
especially in this day and age.
100%.
Oh God, yeah.
So what are you bringing to the table? Well, I know what I'm bringing to the table. What do you bring to the table? Hold on. What if we can take that transactional as to transformational? What is it that you need from me that's going to allow this relationship to flourish? That's a different conversation.
Yeah, 100.
And that then takes away women not being seen, not being heard, or not being understood. For men, it resolves conflict, it resolves cohesion, and it resolves communication. Because we're just shifting the way we look at that conversation. And this is the most profound impact I've had in my relationship, which is, rather than look at things from a and we still do it. Don't get us wrong, we're still okay, what are we doing here? Okay, what can we look at from a relationship perspective? So when I talk to parents, or I talk to people and they're going through relationships, I said, right, what is it that you are going through right now? And meeting them where they're at. Oh, I remember when I first happened, or I remember when this first happened, or can you give me an example of this? And sometimes you just have to call an apple, right? And call out what's going on in that relationship.
It's so true, isn't it? Like I was talking about this with someone I was coaching before I came here today, and she was asking me something, and I just said, just say it.
Yeah.
Like you want something to happen, the other person to do something, but why can't you just say what you want? Like, this is where we're landing ourselves in so many different problems. And this goes back to this beautiful quote by Khalil Gibran, that is, between what is said and not meant, and what is meant and not said, most of love is lost. And that's one of the biggest problems in this day and age in the communication element of relationships, in every scenario, not just romantic. People are just not saying what is on their head. I think if we were to train ourselves just to say what is going on in our mind, be able to just vocalize it without fear of judgment, it takes a lot. It's not easy. I know it's not easy, but of course, then we get into the elements of not being judged, not being able to just receive that information without acting on it. Say, oh, you're being stupid, oh, shut up, that's silly talk, whatever. Yes, it's going to take work on all sides, but that's the starting point. You said it as well, right? Just say it.
Yeah, it has to be done. So what happens is, let's give you a typical example. Actually, majority of the people that reach out to me, in the first instance, are the wives or the partners, or even the children.
Yeah.
And they're going, this was going in my household. I don't know how to approach this. One of the things I say to them is, well, what's stopping you from actually saying what's on your mind? Because you're already thinking it.
Yeah.
So how do we drop that barrier for you to actually just express what you're thinking? And we just sometimes have to, we understand that in a lot of South Asian households, there's a lot of abuse, whether it's domestic, violence, sexual, language, wherever it may be. So it's understanding them. So when they draw that information to me, then I can actually help them go through it. And this is one thing that I'm just speaking from experience. And when I'm looking, I go, okay, so how can you reframe that? And that reframe could be, well, look, I've just noticed that you are spending a lot. Is everything okay? I've seen recently loads of gambling ads and so many different people using gambling as a way. Are you gambling by any chance? If you are, how do we just help you if that's what it is? Or is it something else? Is it trading? Is it this? And then it might give someone, might be not the first start, but if you press it enough, it might open up the conversation. Sometimes they really blatantly know what it is.
Yeah.
And I've just said to them, just send them my profile, just send them my link to our podcast, wherever it may be. This is why podcasts like this is so powerful,
Yeah.
because it's not just about storytelling, it's also about helping people to understand like tangible things that they can do. Get them to watch a podcast. Here are certain things that you can do. So first thing I did to build, because first thing I need to do was, right, what do I need to do? Right, apart from therapy, that's the first thing for me to get recovery. But through this process, how do I still build the trust up? Well, the first thing I need to do is surrender my finances. Right, money is no longer an object, because what does gambling need? It needs time and money.
Mm.
So that no longer
And
becomes
secrecy. Right?
and secrecy. So I no longer have to lie, which means I no longer have to remember what I have to say.
Mm.
I no longer have to think about money. I can just focus on me getting better, which then hopefully makes the relationship get better. I'm also then putting in measures to stop the gambling. There are self-exclusion tools that you can use. There are free ones out there: GamStop, GamBan. Another thing you can do is contact your banks. Contact your banks and tell them. 'Cause remember, it's not just the gambler; it's the person also affected. So put protective measures in your house. Tell them that there seems to be some sort of gambling happening in the house, and can you put restriction on all gambling transactions? That will stop national lottery, bingo sites, stuff like that. So at least you are putting measures in. It's a bit like the first time your house ever got burgled. What's the first thing you do? Go and put an alarm on. Right?
Yeah.
So this is what this is. And then the third thing I would say to people is, right, how do we now know the logical stuff? How do you get to acknowledge what's actually happening in the relationship? Because that person might be going through recovery, and this is a big part of it as well, which is, I've seen this at NHS. They put you in CBT, put you in 12 weeks, and once you're done, good, here
Good.
you are.
Yeah. See you later. Bye. Yeah.
Here you are. But how then do you help build up relationships? You might be out of a job. Well, how do I help you build up your CV and your careers? Well, you're in debt. How do you do debt management? So there's a whole holistic approach, and these are the conversations that need to happen. And some of these are the hardest ones, and it's either going to make you grow together, or it's going to make you grow apart.
Yeah.
And I think the realization is you have to look at both sides of the coin. But as long as you take those steps and are open enough and are talking enough and are trying enough, then at least you are giving yourself at least an element of grace to say, I'm doing what I think is enough for the relationship.
So true. I remember when I first met my wife, I still had some of that residual debt. It was, being managed and everything, but she knew, and I told her, and I was very open about it, and I was glad I was able to have that conversation with her, because I know there's a lot of people out there who would have just judged me for it, say, why haven't you got 50 grand in savings already or whatever? But you're someone who's in debt, and but she understood and she stood by me, and as a result of her standing by me, I was able to pay it off pretty quickly, and but if I'd hidden that in any way, shape, or form, and I imagine if I didn't tell her and I kind of let her, and then she had to find out another way. That would have been detrimental. That would have been the end of that relationship. She would have I know she would have left.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have blamed her, actually, to be honest. But just the fact that I was able to be open with her and tell her, and I think that is such a huge thing, not only in romantic relationships, but in sparing your own relationships and being able to just tell people what's going on in your world, for any various problems. Thankfully, touch wood now, I guard my money with my life.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Hey, I actually do gamble a little bit, just mine. I buy the odd lottery ticket. I do that Omaze thing or whatever, right? It's I do little things, right? Of course we will do, but again, I never do it in silence. And that's the thing when it's done. And then this is one thing I say to everyone: when you do something in silence and you don't tell people, that's when your problem is there. If you can tell people openly, it's no problem.
100%.
If you're doing it in silence, it's an issue, and you need to that's the awareness you need, that metacognition. Am I doing it? Am I hiding this?
Yeah.
And that it's a hard thing. I know it's easier said than done, but that's a hard thing. But that's the truth. That's the big benchmark.
Yeah. Sometimes the answer's in the question, right? So when people say to you, I'm doing this, do you think it's a problem? Well,
yeah.
the fact that you're bringing this to the conversation,
So true.
so the answers are in the question. So it is just giving someone self-validation. But going back to something that you said before, which has sort of crept into my mind now, working with nearly 150 or 200 people now, addiction comes from a place of pain.
Yeah.
So when you are on this, and once again, gaming is another big thing right now. We're seeing the same characteristics in
And they're
gaming.
built to be addictive, right?
So the word is there's gamblification and gamification,
Yeah.
and the loot boxes, the skins.
Yeah.
I actually posted about this the other day. Now Drake is being sued, and a lot of these influencers like Aiden Ross, Exposed, Dijon Dolt, Kai Cenat.
Yeah. I saw your video about
Yeah,
Drake as well. I didn't know about that one.
yeah, but a lot of people, and I would say, half the people are, who are these people? Well, these are streamers, and they have a bigger, younger audience. And did you know this? That 27% of 11 to 17-year-olds have gambled in the last 12 months with their own money.
It's crazy.
Yeah, gambling is illegal under the age of 18.
Yeah.
So they are. Remember, like I said, kids are much smarter than we give them credit for.
Yeah.
They know about VPNs. They know about legal sites. They also know, like Roblox. They had this whole thing which is let's go gambling.
Yeah.
And there's another thing which is another phenomenon which is not on GamStop, because
Mm.
they know that there's what we call the illegal sites, which are typically full of either younger children or young teens or young adults, or people with addictive behaviors, because they can't go on those sites because they're self-excluded. So this is still not masking the issue. So when you look at this, it's more of a case of saying, well, what is it feeding me? And what I come to learn, and anytime I look and I speak to people, I always ask them, and what I'm searching for are two things. Where is the lack of self-validation, and where is the lack of love?
Mm.
And you tend to find they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So when you look at games, when you're playing and you're going for thingies, what are you looking for? Were you looking for a status?
Yeah.
And what was that status giving you? Validation.
Validation. Yeah. Exactly.
So, and that's what I look for. So when you look at gamblers or people that addicted habits, that thing is just the dopamine or the reward that they get from it.
Mm.
So when you look at and you say to yourself, well, what is it that's causing this person not to be seen and heard? But really, where is that validation? People call it identity, like you talked about before, or their status or their place. Remember, South Asians, huge status-based people.
Yeah.
And if they're not deemed to be with the Joneses, gambling is now also advertised as a place to make money. I posted about today. A friend of mine reached out to me. Her son, at 16 years old, came home and said to his mum, "Mum, the way to make money is gambling moving forward." Shock, horror.
Yeah.
Shock. And what's the first thing she did? She knows about my journey. She knows who I am. She literally got her son and started basically saying, "Watch YouTube. Here's Harj. Watch your thingy." Then she contacted me on Instagram and said, "Do you mind having a conversation with him? Now tell him off." I was like, "We don't tell them off." I go, "This is a big problem because now we're suppressing the communication."
Yeah.
So really, this is the perfect opportunity to ask us, well, what sparked that conversation? What sparked?
What's your rationale behind this? What made you come to that conclusion?
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
And when I looked at it and I stripped it all back, it was he saw gambling as a way to make money. So really, it's about money. And what does money give them?
Validation.
Validation or status.
Yeah.
And those are two
It
things I
is-
would look at.
It is crazy at the moment, like how much there is, and like you said, the gamification as well. It's so prolific, and even someone as level as headed as myself has been swept up. And I'm glad I got to a point where I could just switch it off and think, I'm not going to do this anymore. Probably partly because I'm too probably too stingy anyway, right? Which has ended up being a bit of a good thing. But I mean, I joke around about that side of things, but the truth of it is that it doesn't matter who you are, you can get caught and swept up in this. And so we've just got to be really mindful, really careful, observing our own behaviors, being someone who can inspire and also be a role model for other people so they don't go down that route. And I think you're doing an amazing thing. You're doing amazing work. So may that long continue, and just to raise that awareness a little bit so people are aware, and to the signs to look out for and what they can do and how they can handle it should it ever crop up. And hopefully, it doesn't, but if it does, and it is likely to, then you can deal with it a lot better. We can all deal with it a lot better.
And this, and first of all, thank you for saying that. And this is a big part of, like I said, that going to the beginning of the conversation.
Yeah.
What's this one word, purpose? Well, most people that reach out, yes, I would say mainly gambling. I've now got people that reach out for alcohol and drugs. I've got one girl who is she's almost a year into recovery. She was on class A drugs, and when we went through, and I can talk about this, when we went through the whole process, and it took a couple of conversations, we realized when she was 13 years old, she was sexually abused by her dad's brother. So there are reasons why these things happen. and I just made it my mission. So this year I set up a CIO charity called Sochcare. In our language, we always had
Yeah.
said Sochcare or Sochcare
Yeah.
Garden, which means to think, to be mindful.
Yeah.
So Sochcare is a charity where we do three things. We focus on awareness and prevention. So we go out there, do workshops in temples, in councils, community centres, other charities. We want to raise the awareness that, you know, Brit Asians, it is a problem. So let's stop the delusion and stop the shaming and start the strengthening. And then the second part, which is one I'm so passionate about, like I said to you before, because we're underrepresented in treatment, I decided to go and create that. So what we now have is culturally informed and culturally aligned therapy sessions, free for anyone that's struggling with any type of addictions or even mental health. And we got speakers in English, Hindi, Punjabi, Gujarati, Arabic. I think that's it. That's six. I think that's six. And we just and Urdu.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say Urdu, right?
I knew there's one more.
Popped into my head, yeah.
I knew there's one more.
Yeah.
So we've done this because we don't charge anyone, and part of this was going back to my faith and back to Sikhi. When our gurus are alive, and someone reached to him and wanted guidance or help, they didn't say to him, "Give me £1,000. I'm going to sort your life problems out." The simple question was, "How can I help?" So this word seva is.
Yeah.
So I believe we have this word called hukum, which means I believe my God, Waheguruji has given me my hukum, which is my purpose and my mission, which is why I've been on this earth and why I'm here. I'm not meant to be an entrepreneur. I'm not meant to be a teacher. I'm here to help people through addiction. So Charity Sochcare was set up. We've got people coming into us now. We're delivering free therapy sessions. So if you know someone or yourself is going through it and you don't know what to do next, I think part of the reason we did this as well, because sometimes when they go to their friends, that shame and guilt. Yeah. Also, the other big thing is if they went to their temple, is it really confidential?
Yes, yeah.
Now, being a charity, we have to meet certain standards with CQCs and certain GDPRs, etc. So we have to keep that keep that confidentiality at the strictest. So we keep confidentiality at the highest, and we keep non-judgmental at its highest. Yeah. So this is an open space and safe space for anyone watching this that wants some support, wants some guidance for them, even if they've affected others, to get the support that they need for their family. Because our strapline and our motto is very simple: breaking stigmas, rebuilding lives.
Nice. 2 final questions. First one, a quick answer. If you had to share one message to your younger self, or whether you want to put it towards what you're going to share with your sons, your kids, what would it be in one line? And then finally, how can people reach out to you?
No matter how hard life becomes, just realize that you'll always be okay at the other side of it. That's the first one. The second one is very simple. You just type Harj Gahley, Google me. I've done enough work to try and get there. Yeah. Just Google Harj Gahley, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, X. I'm omnipresent. Or you can go to the Sochcare website, which is sochcare.org. There's a form on there. Just fill it in, and me and my team will get back to you straight away.
Dude,
brother,
real pleasure having you on the Feel Inspired podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, now you know what to do and where you can reach out to if you or you know anyone else who's been affected by this, or you found out whatever and you need somewhere to go, because I know it is hard to find places to turn to. You now have your go-to resource for that. So thank you everyone for joining us on the Feel Inspired podcast, and I'll see you on the next episode.